So what if I told you that popping champagne because your hotel is, 100% sold out today is actually the most dangerous mistake your management team could make?
I mean, it sounds completely counterintuitive, doesn't it? Because in hospitality, seeing a full lobby just feels like winning.
Right. Total.
But behind the scenes, that early sellout usually means you just gave away a massive chunk of your annual profit. And you gave to the wrong guests at the wrong price simply because your pricing strategy, well, it just couldn't move fast enough.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because
Yeah.
if you are a hotel general manager or a revenue manager listening to this deep dive right now, you're likely sitting on an absolute gold mine of data right now. You've got the booking pace, the cancellation details, the stay patterns, all of it.
Mhm.
But you might still feel like you're constantly playing defense against an incredibly volatile market. So today we're pulling insights from some really compelling industry research. We've got a 2026 report from Tacticon, strategic analysis from Revfine, and some revealing operational guides from roommaster.
Yeah, the room master stuff is fascinating.
It really is. And our mission today is to help you figure out how to stop leaving money on the table. We want to help you move away from these high-stakes guessing games and towards a proactive, automated growth strategy.
And to really get there, we first need to just completely dismantle some of these legacy mindsets. We have to look at the habits that are quietly draining a property's bottom line. Like the Tocticon report on revenue management mistakes in 2026 points directly at that exact scenario you just mentioned.
It's a sellout thing.
Exactly. Confusing high occupancy with actual commercial
Right,
success.
the sellout applause. But wait a second, I'm putting myself in the shoes of our listener right now, right? Maybe a seasoned GM.
Hmm.
And I have to push back a little here.
Sure, go for it.
A completely full building means my housekeeping staff is optimized, my restaurant is probably busy, and my rooms are generating revenue. Why on earth is a sellout applause a bad thing?
Well, because revenue management success is measured in net profit, not applause at the front desk. The core problem with simply aiming to fill the building is how and when you fill it. It's about displacement.
Okay, break that down for me.
So if you sell out your property 2 or 3 months in advance, it almost invariably means you sold those rooms at an artificially low price.
Wait, let me make sure I'm hearing this right. By locking in a guaranteed, say, $100 booking today, you're telling me I'm actively blocking a $200 booking next month.
Exactly. You've essentially handed over your inventory to early bird bargain hunters. And by doing that, you've displaced the higher value demand that naturally books much closer to the arrival date.
Oh, right, like corporate travelers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about the classic corporate traveler. They don't book a Tuesday night stay 3 months in advance.
No, of course not.
They book it 3 days in advance or maybe even the day before.
Hmm.
And their company is perfectly willing to pay a premium rate for that convenience. But if your hotel is already stuffed full of heavily discounted leisure travelers who grabbed a deal 90 days ago,
You have 0 rooms left to sell.
right, you have absolutely zero inventory left to sell to that high-yield corporate guest.
Man, that is a tough pill to swallow. I mean, you traded a guaranteed lower dollar today for a highly probable higher dollar tomorrow just out of fear that the room would sit empty.
Yeah, and it gets even more complicated when you look at ADR, the average daily rate. Because a lot of managers will point to a high ADR and say, look, we didn't discount, our rate is high.
Right, they feel good about that metric.
But the research from Revfine emphasizes that focusing solely on the level of the rate without understanding the quality of the rate is equally dangerous.
Rate quality. Wait, what makes $150 lower quality than another $150?
It all comes down to net revenue and operational impact. Let's say you achieve that high ADR, but you did it almost entirely through an online travel agency that takes a massive 25% commission.
Ouch. Yeah.
Or say you achieved it by accepting a flood of premium-priced one-night stays on a Friday and Saturday. That might look great on paper for the weekend, but it leaves your shoulder dates.
Those Thursdays and Sundays that are so hard to fill.
Exactly. It leaves them completely empty because you didn't mandate a 2-night minimum. So your net result, your actual profitability, is severely degraded.
And I imagine if your knee-jerk reaction to those empty shoulder dates is to suddenly drop your prices by 40% just to get bodies in beds, you're doing some serious long-term damage to the brand.
Precisely. Discounting to fill rooms during a soft period just trains your audience.
Eh.
Once guests realize that a massive discount is always coming if they just wait until Wednesday afternoon to book.
They'll never book early again.
Right. Recovering your rate integrity becomes incredibly difficult. You are prioritizing the psychological comfort of a full building over the actual financial health of the property.
Okay, so if we know that simply filling rooms at discounted rates is a strategic mistake and early sellouts are a sign of underpricing, how do smart hotel teams keep falling into this trap? I mean, they know the math. Why are they getting caught out?
Because human bandwidth simply cannot physically keep up with real-time market volatility. The administrative burden on a modern revenue manager is just staggering.
How bad is it?
Well, the data shows that revenue managers of properties relying on legacy methods are spending roughly 3 hours every single day. That's about 15 hours a week,
Wait, 15 hours a week just doing what?
just pulling and reconciling reports. They're logging into the property management system to export CSV files of their current bookings. Then they log into their channel manager to see what's happening on expedientbooking.com.
Oh my God.
Then they're manually checking competitor websites to see if the hotel down the street dropped their prices. And then they take all of this disconnected data and dump it into a massive, complex spreadsheet just to figure out what their rate should be for next Tuesday.
So they're spending almost 2 full workdays a week just cleaning data before they've made a single strategic decision. That is wild.
Yes.
And that leads directly to this fascinating financial concept mentioned in the industry analysis, right? The slowness tax. It turns out that 73% of business leaders estimate their organizations lose up to 5% of their annual revenue simply due to delayed decisions.
Yeah, and in the hospitality sector, the impact of that slowness tax is actually much more severe. By relying on manual, periodic spreadsheet updates, hotels are leaving anywhere from 20 to 30% of potential revenue on the table.
20 to 30%. Wow. So doing this manually is literally like playing tennis while wearing a blindfold. You're only swinging your racket after the ball has physically hit you in the chest.
That's exactly it.
You're reacting to the data from yesterday rather than anticipating the play and moving to where the market is going to be this afternoon.
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychology behind that delay. The research points out that this lag isn't necessarily happening because the revenue manager lacks data.
Right. They have plenty of spreadsheets.
Exactly. It happens because of the very human desire to wait for perfectly informed certainty.
Hold on, explain that. What do you mean by waiting for certainty?
Well, imagine a revenue manager sees a sudden, unexpected spike in searches for a specific random weekend in October. The human instinct is not to immediately raise rates across the board.
Right, you'd think maybe it's a glitch.
Exactly. The instinct is to pause and say, wait, is this a real trend or is this a mistake? Let me wait 24 hours to see if these searches turn into actual bookings. Let me check one more competitor.
They want to feel completely safe before they pull the trigger.
Right. But in a volatile modern market, by the time a human achieves that comfortable feeling of absolute certainty, the optimal revenue window has already closed.
Because the early birds grabbed the cheap rates during the initial spike.
Yes, your inventory depleted, and you missed the premium pricing opportunity. Because when you rely on manual pricing, your updates only happen in batches. Maybe once in the morning, maybe once in the afternoon.
If you aren't stuck in a staff meeting.
Exactly. Which means you systematically underprice your rooms during sudden hidden demand spikes, and you overprice them during soft periods where a slight adjustment could have captured a few extra bookings.
So the market is moving minute by minute, and the human team is moving day by day.
The math just doesn't work in favor of the human team.
Okay, so if the human desire for perfect certainty is costing hotels this massive slowness tax, and our spreadsheets are fundamentally too slow, how do we speed up the math without stripping away the manager's strategic control? Because I know GMs do not want to just surrender their pricing to a black box.
This is where we transition from understanding the problem to exploring the specific technological fix. The roommaster guides provide a really deep look into integrating an AI-powered revenue management system, specifically the Amplify RMS, directly with the roommaster property management system.
And the way this was described in the material really caught my eye. They called the Amplify system ChatGPT for your hotel's pricing.
It's a great analogy because it instantly demystifies a historically dense subject. For decades, advanced algorithmic revenue management was, well, an enterprise-level luxury. It was reserved for massive global chains with huge IT budgets and teams of data scientists.
Right.
But what this integration does is democratize that exact same enterprise-level intelligence for the independent hotelier.
Okay, but if I'm a GM listening to this, my immediate thought when I hear AI integration is, this sounds like a 6-month IT headache. What is the actual barrier to entry here? Are we talking about hiring consultants and migrating servers?
Actually, no.
Hmm.
According to the roommaster implementation guides, connecting the two systems takes about 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Come on, you're going to have to explain how that is physically possible.
I know, it sounds crazy, but it's because there is no massive data migration or duplicate entry required.
Yeah.
The Amplify AI is designed to securely plug right into the roommaster PMS and instantly read the data you already have sitting there.
Oh.
Yeah, it digests your historical performance, your current booking pace curves, which is just the trajectory of how fast rooms are filling up compared to last year, and your localized cancellation trends.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. It understands my internal data perfectly, sure, but my internal data only tells me what's happening inside my own four walls. What about the outside world?
That is where the algorithm really earns its keep. It doesn't just look inward. It constantly monitors external market factors in real time. It tracks local event calendars, it watches competitor price shifts hour by hour, and it detects what the industry calls micro-seasonal shifts.
Micro seasonal shifts. Give me a real world example of how an AI spots that before a human does.
Sure, let's say there's a massive regional youth soccer tournament that usually happens in your city during the third week of October. But this year, for whatever reason, the organizers quietly moved it to the second week of October.
Okay.
A human manager looking at last year's spreadsheet is going to expect a slow second week and price accordingly. They won't realize the mistake until bookings suddenly flood in and drain the inventory at a major discount.
Because they were looking backward, not forward.
Exactly. But the AI algorithm weighs the velocity of incoming search queries and localized event data against those historical pace curves. It spots the anomaly instantly.
So it sees the surge before the rooms are gone.
Yes. It realizes, wait, the booking velocity for the second week of October is accelerating 3 times faster than normal, and it immediately adjusts the rate upward before the inventory is depleted.
That makes the rooftop view concept from the research make so much more sense. When you are pricing manually with spreadsheets, you're basically locked in a room on the ground floor. You can only see your own bookings. But the AI gives you access to the rooftop. Suddenly, you can see the entire neighborhood. You see the festival being announced 3 blocks away. You see the hotel down the street quietly dropping their rates, and it tells you why they dropped their rates so you know if you should match them or hold firm.
That is a perfect way to visualize it.
But I have to ask the control question. If I am a GM who likes having their hands on the wheel, does this mean I'm handing my entire business strategy over to a machine?
It's a very valid concern. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, this integration is not about replacing human expertise. It's entirely about augmenting it. Think of it like a commercial airline pilot.
Okay.
The autopilot flies the plane, making thousands of micro adjustments per second to keep the wings level. But the human pilot sets the destination, navigates around the major storms, and defines the parameters of the flight.
So how does that play out in the actual software? How do I set the destination?
You set the guardrails, you establish your absolute minimum and maximum rates, you define who your true competitors are, and you dictate the overarching brand strategy. The Amplify system actually offers 2 distinct modes.
What are they?
There's Autopilot, where the system fully automates the publishing of rate changes across all your channels based on the rules you've set.
Which sounds great for absolute efficiency, but what if I'm, just not ready for that level of automation yet?
Then you use Copilot mode. In Copilot, the system generates all the complex analysis, weighs the velocity in the competitor data, and suggests the mathematically optimal rate.
Ah, it suggests it.
Right, and then it pauses. It waits for the human revenue manager to review and approve the suggestion before pushing it live to the booking engines. The AI does the heavy mathematical lifting, but the human retains ultimate veto power.
Okay, theory is great, but I want to talk about reality. How does this AI integration actually change the daily life, and more importantly, the bottom line, for a real hotel team? Because the case studies we looked at highlighted a specific property that really brings this to life. Let's talk about the Flamingo Motel in Ocean City, Maryland.
Yeah, the Flamingo Motel is a perfect microcosm of this entire transition. They are a classic independent property, 108 rooms right by the beach with generations of loyal guests. But their pricing strategy had hit a total operational wall.
Right. Susie, their general manager, detailed what their old process looked like. Before using the AI integration, she and her team were manually updating their rates 2 to 3 times a day, which, is a ton of manual effort.
It really is.
They were working incredibly hard. But Susie admitted that even doing it 3 times a day, they were still missing vital demand spikes.
Because 3 times a day is still batch processing. If a demand spike hits at 2:00 p.m. and you don't update your spreadsheet until 5:00 p.m.,
You've lost 3 hours of premium revenue.
exactly. The revenue was just slipping through their fingers because human hands simply couldn't type fast enough to keep up with the market volatility.
So they activated the Amplify and roommaster integration. They let the AI take over the continuous monitoring of local events, the competitor rate checking, and the constant micro adjustments within their guardrails.
hmm
And the results were staggering. During their critical holiday season, the Flamingo Motel saw a 35% increase in RevPAR. That's revenue per available room.
And that single case study is perfectly aligned with the broader aggregate data reported across properties using this integration.
It's not just a one-off.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Across the board, independent hoteliers report up to a 35% higher RevPAR and up to a 40% higher average daily rate while actually boosting their overall occupancy. They literally stopped leaving money on the table.
But there's a secondary metric in the data that I think is the true aha moment of this whole deep dive. Properties report saving 29 hours every single month per revenue manager.
29 hours. That is nearly an entire work week given back to a key team member every single month, roughly 4 to 6 hours a week.
So what does this all mean? When you give a revenue manager back almost 30 hours of their life by eliminating tactical CSV exports and velo ups, what do they actually do with that time?
This is what the industry refers to as the strategic shift. When you remove the burden of manual rate execution, the revenue manager's role fundamentally evolves. They stop being data entry clerks and they become true commercial strategists.
Right.
With those 29 hours, they can finally focus on deep scenario planning. They can run complex what-if analyses to prepare for different macroeconomic conditions.
They can also tackle channel mix optimization, which is massive for profitability. I mean, it's
Wow.
one thing to fill a room, it's another to fill it profitably. The research points out that online travel agencies, the Expedias and Booking.coms of the world, they take a massive 15 to 30% commission on every single booking. Meanwhile, driving a direct booking through your own hotel website only costs about 3.5 to 4.5%.
Exactly. If the AI is handling the baseline pricing mechanics, the revenue manager can spend their newfound time figuring out exactly how to shift that channel mix.
Because they actually have the time to think about it.
Right. They can craft targeted marketing campaigns or special experiential packages designed specifically to lure guests away from those expensive OTAs
Yeah.
and toward the highly profitable direct channels.
They finally have the bandwidth to collaborate. They can sit down with the sales team to build better group packages or work with the marketing director on a hyper-targeted email campaign for a soft week they've identified 3 months in the future. It's a complete shift from guesswork and reaction to strategy and proactive growth.
And zooming out, this strategic shift is exactly what allows an independent 108-room property like the Flamingo Motel to finally compete on a level playing field with massive global hotel chains.
That's amazing.
The technology gap has been entirely erased. The independent hotelier now has the exact same algorithmic power at their fingertips, but they retain the unique charm, agility, and personalized service that a massive corporate chain can never replicate.
That is incredibly empowering. So to bring this all together for you, the listener, if you are using roommaster, you are already sitting on the data. The past performance, the booking pace, the cancellation trends, they are all there. By activating that data with an AI co-pilot like Amplify, you eliminate that silent 5% slowness tax that's bleeding your revenue. You avoid the deceptive trap of success through occupancy where you sell out too early to the wrong guests. And most importantly, you free your team from the spreadsheet trap. And it's worth noting, the implementation guides mentioned there is currently a 1-month free trial offer available. You can literally plug it in, and again, it takes 5 minutes, and watch how the algorithm uncovers revenue you didn't even know you were missing.
You are simply letting the system do the math so your people can do the hospitality, which actually, this raises an important question about the long-term future of this industry.
Oh, I like where this is going. What's the question?
Well, if we project forward, if we assume that within the next few years, AI will flawlessly handle all the complex mathematical pricing, the market analysis, and the rate distribution for absolutely every hotel.
Okay.
If the math is completely solved by machines across the board, will the true competitive advantage for hotels in the 2030s revert entirely back to the unautomatable human elements of hospitality?
Wow, wait, so if everyone has perfect real-time algorithmic pricing, then price is no longer the key differentiator.
Exactly. Will the highly technical revenue manager of today actually evolve into a guest experience strategist tomorrow? Someone who uses all that newfound free time to curate the kind of deep, personal, on-property guest loyalty that absolutely no algorithm on Earth can replicate.
That is a brilliant thought to leave on. You start by automating the data so you can ultimately humanize the guest experience. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us today. Until next time, keep looking at the bigger picture, and we'll see you on the next one.